All right, let's get started. Let's do this. All right, week 3, passive income. Money from money you already have. Let's discuss. If you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you will work until you die. And if you're not familiar with Warren Buffett, he is one of the most famous investors in the world. He's made billions of dollars just by investing. Basically, this dude has never had a day job. And, his dad was a stockbroker. So it's not like he was raised with a lot of advantages and learning about this since he was very, very young. But the crazy thing about this dude is he doesn't even know how to send an email. Like he's old as hell, right? But he understands the foundations, the basics of making money so well that all the new information that comes with the internet on what stocks to buy and sell, all the bells and whistles, he ignores all that. He doesn't even know how to come into contact with it, but he follows these very, very old school, very traditional methods of making money. And I've always followed his playbook, the foundations, the rules, the tried and true tested stuff. And he says, if you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you will work until you die. What is he talking about? You can respond by unmuting yourself verbally, or you can type it in the chat. But what is
Warren Buffett also has a good teacher, great teacher who wrote many books. One of the famous books of investing, yeah?
Yes.
Is it true?
Yes. He is probably the most famous American investor. And this is one of his famous quotes that if you don't learn to make money while you sleep, you will work until you die. What does he mean? What do you think he's talking about?
I mean, I feel like as long as you have to work for money, your expenses and your assets are not at, there's more expenses than there's assets. So, hence, like, why I have to keep working, because I have so many expenses that I have to keep working. Now, if I was to have so many assets, I could stop working whenever I'd like. So,
and what do you mean by assets, Flash? Because I know
an asset would be like me investing into to a blue chip stock where I'd have some type of money on every end of the month, or like you, I would probably invest into commercial estate where I could keep sleeping, I could wake up and I'll have 30,000 in my bank account wired in.
Yeah.
Right, that's the life. And there are a lot of ways to make passive income, right? To make money while you sleep, to make money from the money you already have. And we're going to get into that today. That's the focus of our.
He also want to say, like, we only have 24 hours in our day and we can't work all the day. Like that only he wanted to say. Simply if we mean.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you can't, it's if you're only relying on your labor to make money, then you're going to have to keep laboring forever.
Yeah, we have only limited time available.
Exactly. So we have to find ways when we work, when we generate money, we have to find ways to make that money grow by itself. And that's the focus of today's class. And I'm here to tell you that there's no amount of money too small for this process. It doesn't matter if you have $10 or if you have $10,000 saved. There is never too little money for passive income. There are always ways to invest that money or place that money wisely in such a way that it grows by itself. So let's just quickly review the difference between active and passive income, because I've been, in preparation for these lessons, I always try, I'm always researching. I'm always staying up to date. I've been teaching this for years, but things change and move fast. So even though I'm more of a traditional investor, and people who've usually grew up in relative poverty tend to follow more traditional methods of investing because we have more to lose. It's riskier, but I always try to stay up to date. And what I've been seeing is a lot of confusion between what active income is and what passive income is. Active income is when you make money. It's your labor making money. So that includes side hustles. like driving or vending machines or selling items you own, taking surveys on the internet for money, participating in studies. All of that is active income. Even if it's not your primary source of money, if it's something you're doing on the side, it's still active. It's you, your labor producing the money. Passive income is when your assets make money, like Flash was saying. It's when your money and property that you already have is generating more income for you. Now, examples of this we went over last week are compound interest. And today we're going to continue that, talking about appreciation and dividends through ETFs and REITs. Now, you might not know what that means yet, but we'll get there. And leasing and rentals, your existing property, and peer-to-peer lending. So these are the classic forms of passive income, except for maybe peer-to-peer lending. That's sort of a new thing, and we'll talk about that. But it's very important to understand passive income involves no other labor on your part other than putting your money in the right place. And to generate passive income, you need savings, right? You need money that exists, which is why we all have to work, at least at the beginning. But money that is well placed over time should generate enough passive income that you either don't have to work or take more risks. Because, hey, if you lose your job, it's okay. You can survive a month or 2 or 3 or a year. That's the goal, right? To have enough passive income that you're not living in fear. Because who wants to live in fear? We all know what it's like to live in fear of not having enough. And that's not something I want for any of you or for myself, which is why I've really devoted my life to generating passive income. And I'm here to tell you guys that it's not that hard. You can get started with pretty much any amount of money and grow your financial security day by day. Okay, some preliminary vocabulary that I'd like everybody to understand before we move on. Compound interest, we discussed last week, is interest calculated on principal plus prior interest. And we will review that. But essentially, when you put your money in an account with compound interest, you're earning more free money because of the way the bank calculates the interest they pay you. Appreciation means you could sell a stock for more than you paid, right? Buy low, sell higher. Dividends are regular payouts by a company to keep you invested with them. So there are certain companies, when you buy stock in them, they give you little bits of money every single month as long as you don't sell your stock. As long as you stay invested with them, they're going to give you extra payouts. So whether your stock that you have with them is going up in value or going down that day, doesn't matter. They're still going to pay you some money because they want to keep you invested with them. There's leasing or renting out your property. There are ways, at least in the United States, to rent out pretty much everything you own. This is something I did a lot when I was younger, and it requires a little bit more labor than other forms of passive income because you have to coordinate with the people who are going to rent your stuff, but it can be worthwhile depending on the assets that you have. Bonds are when the government pays you interest, and we'll get into that. Peer-to-peer lending is when a person pays you interest. When you take your savings and you lend it to another person through a peer-to-peer lending platform, and they pay you back plus interest. All right, just to review compound interest. If you were here last week, we went into this at length, but I'm just going to give everybody an example. So let's say Monique is a woman. She has a daughter at age 25 and wants to save for her college education in a way that is zero risk, right? She could open a brokerage account and play the stock market, but she doesn't want to risk anything. She wants to make sure that no matter what, this money is there. So she opens a CD account at a fixed 2.5% rate. So the 2.5% rate means that the bank is going to pay her 2.5% of what she put into the account plus the interest they've already paid her every month or every day or every year, however often the interest compounds. So she opens a CD account with $2,000 and contributes $400 per month for 15 years. So for the full length of her daughter's childhood. This earns her over $90,000 when she has actually only contributed $74,000 herself. If she were to leave the money there for another 5 years till her daughter was 20, making zero more deposits, so she stopped putting in any money, she will still have earned an additional $11,000 in free money or in compound interest alone, bringing her total savings to over $100,000. So the whole beauty of compound interest, and this is what we reviewed last week, is the longer you keep it in there, the better. So she contributes $74,000. That's money that she has saved, but she has $100,000. So $26,000 in free money. And that's enough to provide for a full college education for her daughter. The average cost of a college education in 20 years from now, is going to be $100,000 for 6 years. So that's undergraduate plus graduate study if you go to a more affordable university. So she wants $100,000. She can only really afford to save up $74,000, but it's okay. The bank paid her so much free money just to keep her savings in that type of account that now she has enough. So this is the most risk-free form of passive income there is. It's compound interest. There's no way the bank is going to lose her money, and they're going to give her money for free just by sitting it in there. So this is zero risk, and it's something that everybody can do no matter what. You just have to make sure that you're willing to put in the time. If she were to pull out her money too early, there's really no point in having it in that kind of account in the first place. So if there's money that you want to save for a future purpose, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, it must be in an account where you're earning compound interest. And that's a CD or an IRA. If you want more details on that, watch our week 2 YouTube video that's on our YouTube page now. All right, more zero risk forms of passive income. So these are forms where there's absolutely no risk involved. You will make passive income guaranteed no matter what. Buying bonds. So most countries have this system where if you lend them money, they agree to pay you back plus interest. The best way, and this is a brand new financial product that exists. This did not exist when I was younger. The best way to invest in bonds is to buy something called bond ladders, which means you're buying a bundle of different bonds at once, which mature or get paid back to you at different times. This gives you regular payouts because different bonds are maturing at different times, and your total investment is protected against low interest rates. So the way it used to work is you would buy a bond, right? The government gives you basically an IOU. So you give the government money, they give you an IOU, and they say, okay, we will pay you back in 10 years or 20 years or however long the bond says, right? You get to choose. And they say, okay, we pay you back in 10 years. And we'll pay you back plus 1% interest or 2% interest, whatever the interest rate is that year. So whatever the interest rate is the year you buy the bond, that continues throughout the life of the bond. So even if, let's say you buy the bond in the year 2000 and it matures in 2020, the interest you've been earning every year between the year 2000 and the year 2020 is whatever the interest rate was in the year 2020 or the year 2000 when you bought the bond. So bond ladders are kind of cool because instead of, let's say you have $100 and you want to buy bonds, instead of just buying one bond at one fixed interest rate, you're spending that $100 spread between a bunch of different bonds. So let's say you buy a bond in the year 2000 and in 2001, the interest rate goes way up, you're like, shit, I already spent all my money on bonds in the year 2000 and now I'm locked in. But with bond ladders, your money is constantly being reinvested in different bonds that mature at different times. So if you're going to buy bonds, if that's something you're interested in, get a bond ladder instead of just one single bond. This being said, bonds aren't really paying much right now because interest rates in the United States are so low. That's because we're in an economic depression, and it's the way that our Federal Reserve, our central bank, deals with economic depression is to bring down interest rates super low to make it easier to borrow, because that's what most people need to do in an economic crisis. They need to borrow. But for investors, it's not great news because the interest rates you're being paid by banks and by the US government for investing your money are also very low. So I would hold off buying bonds right now, but in the future, when interest rates go up, it's something that you should definitely consider. Any questions about bond ladders before we move on? Okay, if you have questions later, send me an email. All right. Now let's move on to low risk passive income. So this is not like bonds or compound interest. There is some risk involved. There is a risk in this case of damage to your property. So I have a bunch of resources here that I think are only available in the United States. There might be similar services in other countries, but I'm not sure. And I can help anybody with that after class if they need it. But in the US, there are ways to basically rent out everything you own. If you have a car and you're not using it every day, you can rent it out. You can rent a room in your house, either to another individual, or you can rent it out to movie studios and film studios. I know India and the United States have very big film industries. Lots of TV shows, lots of movies are filmed in our countries. So this is something I would do when I was in college. I went to UCLA. There's a lot of film studios around here. And I used to rent out my apartment to television shows and movie studios all the time. And I had a really crappy apartment, but that was the appeal. Anytime they wanted to film a show about like drug dealers in a crappy area or people, you know, they filmed all kinds of shows about people in bad financial situations in my apartment because I had such a I've had such crappy old furniture. I had such a terrible looking place that it was exactly what they wanted. I remember one producer told me he didn't have to do anything to make my apartment look worse because it already looked so bad. So if you're interested in doing that, if you live with your family and that's something they'd be open to, they pay you a few $100s. They feed you guys for the day. They clean everything up after they leave. It's kind of a great deal. So check out Gigster. That's the website where you can list your apartment or your house. You can lend your closet if you have valuable items. And this is a link to rent out basically anything you own. If you access the slides and click on this, it's whatever you have, whether it's a camera, table and chairs, a TV. There are people that will rent out basically anything you own. And it can be a great way to generate passive income. But the risk is they could damage your property. And there aren't always insurances against that. But I have tried basically all these methods and I've never had an issue. So this is one option that is available to you. This is what I would prefer that you do, is invest in stocks and securities. So that's what we're going to focus on for the rest of the class. This is my preferred method of generating passive income, but because there is some amount of risk involved, it's not for everyone. Some people are completely risk averse. They don't want to take any chances. So they will rent out their property or they'll just focus on zero risk passive income from compound interest. But if you're willing to take on a small amount of risk, dividend stocks are a great way to start. So essentially, dividends are monthly payouts to you from companies that you have bought stock in. The payouts happen no matter what happens to the value of your stock, just to keep you invested with them, which is why the dividend is 0 to low risk or guaranteed passive income. So the dividend itself is 0 risk, right? Let's say you buy a Disney stock for $100. Maybe the next day it goes down to 95. So you did lose $5 that day, but that month Disney is going to pay you a dividend no matter what. Even if your stock dropped that day or that month, it doesn't matter. The dividend is guaranteed. So if you're getting started investing in stocks, you want to always make sure you're investing in stocks that pay dividends, that give you an extra bit of money every month, no matter what. And it's secure because it's secured by the fact that they pay dividends, because that attracts a lot of investors. So you know that no matter what, there are people who are going to be buying that stock and maintaining its value just to get the dividend, basically doing what you're doing. So not only is the dividend itself 0 risk, but it lessens the risk of owning the stock, because selling dividends will always attract other investors to that stock and helps to maintain the value. Low to medium risk passive income on the stock market is called appreciation. So that just means that the value of whatever stock you bought has gone up. The dividend is 0 risk, and but there is a risk involved in the stock itself, because it can go down. Things do happen. When you're getting started with investing and you're not the kind of person that wants to be, on your phone or on the computer every day worrying about, should I buy or sell this stock today? If you're not someone that wants to be a day trader and you're just getting started, the best way to do that is to buy stock in exchange traded funds, or ETFs. So what is an ETF? Essentially, an ETF is a group of professional stockbrokers, so professional stock market traders, and they work in a building together, they work in a collective, and they take investors' money. When they get that money, what they do with it is buy up assets. So they can buy bonds, they can buy stocks, they can buy oil, they can buy foreign currencies, they can buy gold, they can buy real estate. They take investors' money and buy up hard assets with that money, or they buy stocks. So when those assets appreciate in value, they pay out their investors. So this is a cool way for you to buy oil and gold and real estate and things that you might not have the money just to buy yourself, but you can still invest in it through an exchange traded fund. My favorite type of exchange traded fund is a real estate investment trust. It's called a RIT. So when I say RIT, I mean real estate investment trust. This is an exchange traded fund that buys real estate. So instead of buying foreign currencies or stocks or oil futures, they're buying up real estate. They're buying buildings. And there are RITs that invest in commercial real estate. There are RITs that invest in residential. They buy up apartment buildings. There are RITs that invest in industrial properties, so warehouses and factories. In the United States, the vast majority of our property is owned by real estate investment trusts. So most of the houses you see, it's not most of the houses, most of the commercial real estate, most of the factories in the United States, they're not owned by one person or by a family. They're owned by big groups of investors. And getting in on that is a way to make some serious passive income over time. So let's get into the specific ETFs and RITs that I would recommend you invest in right now. High performing and growing ETFs to invest in right now. So in the past year, the ETFs that have had the highest growth are in clean energy, cloud computing, and fintech or financial technology innovation. ICLN is a great clean energy ETF to get started. So ICLN, or the iShares Global Clean Energy ETF, what they do is they invest in companies or buy up companies that are producing clean energy. And even if the United States is run by somebody that doesn't believe in science, fortunately, other countries are run by leaders that do believe in science and invest a lot in clean energy. So this is something that is only going to grow. We have to save our planet. More and more governments are getting behind investing in clean energy. More and more companies are meeting those regulations set by government by developing cars that don't pollute and ways of manufacturing that are cleaner. That is what ICLN invests in. And their growth has been exponential. They've just been shooting up. Their fund has been shooting up in value, and I think it's only going to continue. WisdomTree Cloud Computing. So this is something that every company out there, from Facebook and Instagram to Ford Motors, right? Every single company needs more space in the cloud. And so, right, ways to expand that space in the cloud are very valuable. So WisdomTree.
It is the emerging technology.
Go ahead.
It is the emerging technology which is coming in software development.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So like Siddhant is saying, there are so many programmers and computer scientists all over the world working on this problem, right? Because we're running out of space in the cloud. We're uploading everything, even things we don't realize we're uploading, to this digital storage space in the cloud. And there are so many professionals right now working on ways to expand it.
Another industry is, I think, nanotechnology, which is also going to come in next 10 to 15 years.
Very smart. Very smart. So there are also nanotechnology ETFs that I can recommend to you, Siddhant. I'll send you an email with some of those later. So if you search WCLD in your trading platform, or you let your banker where you have your IRA know about these particular stocks, these particular funds, these are the abbreviations that you would need to give them. Another is fintech innovation. So financial technology, ways to move money around the world, things like Robinhood, new trading platforms, new peer-to-peer lending platforms, ways to process transactions and keep more information private. These are all things that are encompassed by financial technology. So these are just 3 strong examples. There are other ETFs that invest in these same things. And, like Siddhant pointed out, other ETFs, like ETFs that focus on nanotechnology. So any type of technology or advancement that you can think of, anything you can think of, like nanotechnology just popped into Siddhant's mind as being something that's important for the future. If you have that thought, research what kind of ETF is invested in nanotechnology, and then you can become an investor in that technology you believe in by buying a share of that fund. My favorite type of investment of all time are real estate funds. So these are groups of investors who, instead of buying stock in companies, they're buying physical property. And the reason I like this is because it's a limited supply, right? We only have so much space on the planet. There are only so many buildings we can build. So investing in property is traditionally the most secure way to make money. However, currently we are in financial crisis because of the pandemic. So people aren't really buying houses, and Commercial real estate is actually on the decline because of online shopping. Buying a big building these days and expecting a clothing store to move into it or an electronics store to move into it and pay you rent is not realistic anymore. What we need are industrial properties. Online retail requires big warehouse spaces in order to store and distribute the product or to produce it. So investing in industrial property is the most secure thing to do right now. Also, timber, wood, building materials. So the industrial funds I would recommend investing in right now are listed here. Pergolis, Terreno, and First Industrial. Also, the Potlatch Deltic Timber REIT. These links right here will give you other options as well, but these are the highest performing and fastest growing funds right now that invest in real estate.
So I had a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do ETFs ever pay out dividends?
Yes.
Well,
yes, that's what I was going to get into. So funds pay more dividends than any other type of stock. If you want dividends, invest in funds, invest in REITs, or invest in a more traditional ETF that buys stock or invests in companies, because they pay the most dividends of any kind of stock. The dividends are much higher than if you were to buy stock in individual companies. That's sort of how they get investors on board, is they guarantee these dividends every month, no matter what. So all of these funds that I've listed for you here, Pergolis, Terreno, First Industrial, Potlatch, Deltic, going back, any of these on this list, they all pay dividends, and they all pay very high dividends compared to what you would get buying individual stock. So you can find all of these funds on your trading platform. If you're using E-Trade, if you have a traditional investment account or brokerage account, or if you're just using Robinhood on your phone, you can find these companies. And
yeah, I just checked out that Clean Air Company is going around for $42 at the moment.
yeah,
I might set up a stop loss and get it at 18 or 17 bucks if it ever drops down.
yeah, you can do that, or you can buy a fractional share. If you have E-Trade or Robinhood will let you buy fractional shares. So let's say you want to buy one full share of Prologis, but you don't have the money it takes to buy one full share. You can buy a fraction of it with whatever money you have. So if you only have $1, you can put $1 in there. Right? So
that's good to know. I never knew that. I never knew that you could buy a fractional share of a stock. I thought you'd always have to pay a full payment of a stock, but that's cool. I didn't check that on my platform, TD Ameritrade, but I feel like they should have that though.
If they don't, Robinhood does.
Yeah.
If they don't, and I know E-Trade also. So you can buy, I buy fractional shares all the time. All the time.
And this is also a good time for buying the stocks because the market is too down.
Yes, yes. It's all undervalued right now.
Yeah, all-time low, I think so.
Yes, it's all undervalued. And look, it might get a little worse before it gets better. But if you look at this pandemic in the whole context of your life, it's a blip. Even if it lasts till 2023, it's still a blip, a short period of time. And the point of investing is time. It's the length of your life. It's about the future. So even, let's say you invest in all this stuff today, and over the next few months, it gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. Don't panic. It will go up. It's about the length of time. And don't panic if things get a little bit worse before it gets better. That might happen, or we might just see growth. All I know is that if you're going to get your foot in the door when it comes to investing, and you want something that is secure and relatively low risk, funds are the way to go. Funds are the way to go. So if there's another industry that you're interested in, like for example, nanotechnology, just put it in Google. ETF that invests in nanotechnology, and you can see their performance, how they've been doing. These are the industries that are growing and will continue to grow. So these are my recommendations, but it's not to say that there aren't other funds or other industries out there that are great investments. This is just sort of what I'm doing right now, so I want to share it with you. And it's been very, very profitable for me over the last couple of years. It's been especially industrial REITs. I would say if you're going to pick anything to invest in, it would be these industrial REITs right here, Prologis, Terreno, and First Industrial. I've made like $20,000 in the last year just from, I would have made a lot more if I would have been paying attention. But I sort of bought this stuff last year and didn't think about it. And I was looking a couple of weeks ago, whoa, okay, that's where all my profit this year has come from, is these industrial REITs, because Amazon needs crazy amounts of warehouse space. Amazon is buying up warehouses all over the planet. So are other online retailers, competitors to Amazon from other countries. Industrial property is the future.
I was going to tell you, remember how in our class last year we had that one scenario where we had to get money before the epidemic of the crash in 2007, and we had $15,000 to go into, and then whatever we came out with. And I looked at my old stock hold, and there was a Sunrun company, which is a solar panel company that's starting up, and it was at $14, and I checked like 2 days ago. Now it's up to $64. So I missed out on that, but I was like, wow,
But you know that your mind was in the right place.
Right. And this is just the idea of, like, if you're scared of stocks, like, there's always just trading paper stocks, which is like trading with yourself, basically buying stocks, imaginary stocks, and just over time you'll see how high they go up. That's just in case if you're very worried, if you're not ready to go into stocks, you can always just put your little toe in the water, check it out. And that's what I did. And then after that, I started buying stocks now.
So Flash, that's the coolest thing ever. Siddhant and Jamie. So what we did in class as an exercise is I had students just sort of buy imaginary stocks, right? Pretend they had a certain amount of money. Use just their intuition. No formal training, no formal finance education at all. Just their intuition. What do you think is going to grow because of the pandemic? What do you think a good investment is now because of the pandemic? And I've had so many students tell me that their intuition guided them the right way. And like Flash said, it's giving you the confidence, right? So if you're not ready, or if you don't have the money right now to start investing, do what Flash is recommending and pretend, right? Pretend you have a certain amount of money, track certain ETFs or stocks to see where they go. And if you're making the right predictions, it's just free and you're learning what to do. So if you're not ready to get started with your actual savings, then pretend until we learn to trust your intuition. Can we all go on mute just for now so there's no background noise? So if anyone's not on mute, please mute yourself so that we stop the background noise. Okay, thank you guys. And feel free to unmute anytime you guys have a question or contribution.
What about Dow Jones? What about that? If we are going for a long term.
Dow Jones is good for long term. However, the Dow Jones focuses on in industry, right? So oil, gas, big global industries. So it's very safe. It's just not going to have growth that's quite as fast as some of these other stocks or funds that I recommended. But it is a very secure place to put your money. It's just sort of stagnant, but it's undervalued right now. So after the pandemic, it will increase, and just like the whole market will. So I'd say Dow, the Dow companies or any kind of ETF that buys stocks on the Dow, it's going to be undervalued right now, and will definitely have a very quick upshot of growth as the pandemic declines, and then more steady incremental growth over time. So that is another great place.
Yeah, this pandemic is like an advantage
Oh, I
because
know.
the price of stocks are very low.
It's so, I mean, it's terrible, right? But it's so exciting.
Yeah,
It's like if you're an investor, you're like, oh, it's so fun.
yeah.
It's so fun. Okay, I wanted to get into one more type of passive income that you might be interested in. I actually do this because I have the money to take on a little bit more risk, but it's peer-to-peer lending. So if you have a decent amount of savings and you want high returns every month, the best thing you could probably do is lend to somebody who is trying to borrow through a peer-to-peer lending platform. This link here has a bunch of different examples of peer-to-peer lending platforms. Right now, I am getting paid almost $1,500 a month in free money just because I lent somebody $25,000 through a peer-to-peer lending. Or when I say somebody, I mean I lent it to a bunch of different people all at once. And I selected a high level of risk because I can afford it, but you can select a very low level of risk where you're lending to people who are almost guaranteed to pay you back. It just depends on the level of risk you're willing to take on. So this is something you can consider for the future or for the
On a platform like that, is your money insured or not?
That's a great question. So there are a couple different options to insure your investment. One way you can insure it is by taking on a low level of risk. So basically lending to someone who has very high credit, no history of default. Because even people with excellent credit and no history of default, even excellent business people, are getting denied by banks right now because of this crisis. So more and more people are turning to peer-to-peer lending. So one way to insure your investment is to choose a low level of risk. Another way is to work with a platform that insures your investment. I think most of them will insure some of them will insure investments up to $250,000. So in this link right here, there's an article about the best peer-to-peer lending sites for borrowers and investors. And you guys have to look into these, but several of them insure your deposit up to $250,000 or insure your investment up to $250,000 if you're willing to take on a slightly higher level of risk. So it just depends on the platform. What most people do is they just choose a lower risk level, but then the payout is also less. So I think the best thing to do if you're going to get into peer-to-peer lending is to choose a slightly higher level of risk, but do it through a platform that will insure at least a portion of your contribution. But what you guys have to realize is that if, let's say you put $10,000 into a peer-to-peer lending platform, you're not lending money to one person. You're lending money to hundreds of people who are assigned whatever risk level you signed up for. So I chose the highest possible risk level. I chose I think the highest available is 12%. So the people I'm lending to are paying me 12% interest every month. But I'm not just lending to one person. I'm lending to, I think it's like 300 people who are all assigned to the high risk category. And my investment is not insured, but so far so good. It's very unlikely, especially in established peer-to-peer networks, that there will be mass default, because you're not just lending to one person, you're lending to hundreds of people at one time. And maybe a few will default, but overall, this big sack of borrowers that you're lending to, overall, they will make their payments. And if they don't, then most peer-to-peer lending networks have some sort of contingency for that, have some sort of insurance, they offer some kind of backup plan. It's something to consider. It's not what I'd recommend that you guys start out doing. I recommend you start out downloading the Robinhood app or opening up an E-Trade account, or whatever it is, and putting your savings into ETFs and REITs. But as you build more wealth, peer-to-peer lending is something you might want to look into, because it is paying my mortgage every month, just the interest someone else is paying me. And the pandemic, again, this is a time where people need to borrow money to hold them over. So it's a time when a lot of people are going to peer-to-peer providers.
Yeah. In India, my uncle did become rich by this method only. He, like, you are borrowing, like you are saving the money to lending. But he is some amazing person. He just take from the bank and give it on high interest than bank and earning money.
It's called being a loan shark.
Yeah.
And it is so I come from I'm Jewish. I come from Jewish culture, and historically, Jews were not allowed to have regular jobs. Jews could not be doctors. We could not be lawyers. Colleges would not let Jews in. So the only option that we had to make money was to work whatever job, cleaning houses, cooking food, whatever we did, save everything, and then lend it to people that needed money at high interest rates. That was how Jews got their start in finance.
Because bank doesn't give them, because they don't have much collateral.
Yes, exactly.
And we charge them high interest, so it is a profit for both.
Totally. And I know there are peer-to-peer lending networks in India as well. So you can be, even if you have $10, $20 to contribute, you can actually be part of a group of lenders that is lending to a group of borrowers. So there's, I can help you, Siddhant, or anyone else here that wants to look into peer-to-peer loan providers in their country, because I think they exist almost everywhere. Because it's the most popular way to borrow money right now. Banks are becoming a thing of the past. We don't really need them anymore because we have the internet. Okay. So which sources of passive income are you guys going to research further before our next class? What are you guys interested in? What are you you thinking?
Definitely ETFs, because I've been so into buying individual stocks that I need something for me to put in less money, but more branch out, like have my money around multiple places rather than me buying multiple MFA stocks or WT stocks. But also mining onto the non-passive income. There are multiple platforms, like just as we speak right now, Ms. Burke is making passive income through YouTube. There's ad revenue, there's affiliate marketing. She could be getting some, like, as we speak right now, she's creating her own passive income, so which is great.
If I was better at social media, Flash, if I was better at it, I don't know anything about social media.
Right. So there's so many things, like, just being able to send out emails about products. You create passive income just from home, just like that. So there's whether like with the internet, there's so many passive income opportunities.
There are, and what I want to distinguish though is if you're putting in effort. So if you're taking, there's a lot of ways to make, side hustles, right? Side hustles and passive income are different. Just recognize that if you're taking a survey to make money, that's active. You just did something, right? You did the work, you made the money. So that's active income. But you got to have active income first for the passive income to come next. So there, like Flash is saying, there are a lot of opportunities on the internet to generate, even a few $100s over a several month period of time, taking that money, buying your stock, and then seeing it grow from there. So if anybody here is interested in ways to make active income, like a side hustle online, I have a lot of resources I can share with you guys for. And so many opportunities. Surveys, products, affiliate marketing on Facebook if you have enough followers.
Just tell me. I'm interested in all that stuff.
Okay, Siddhan, let me put I thought you would say that. Let me put my email in here, clarity@itsfinlit.org, and I'm going to send you some resources. Gabby, financial literacy books. Wow, I have great recommendations. So I would start out with Rich Dad Poor Dad. Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki.
Red.
Yes. That's probably my favorite. It's if you've never read a book about financial literacy before, that's the one to get started with, Gabby. So Siddhan, email me at clarity@itsfinlit.org, and I'm going to share all the best resources I know for how to make money surveys online.
Are you available on Instagram?
I'm sorry, what?
Are you online or available on Instagram?
Oh, yes, or message me on Instagram. Message me at It's Finlit.org. That's
Okay. I will contact you there only.
perfect. Yeah, no problem. Someone else might check it, but they'll let me know. All right, everybody. Do we have any questions before we leave? You can always follow up with me online. Please do. All right, you guys.
Have a good one, Ms. Burke. I had no questions, but I'm gonna go find some ETFs for me to put my money into.
Okay.
And then before I make a buy, I'll make sure to contact you just to hit you up. And I got your Facebook now. I got Facebook.
I'll never check Facebook. Never. So message me on Instagram.
All right. What's your Instagram?
I put it right here at itsfinlit.org, right there. Just message me there, or send me an email right here. The next week's class, let me just get into this real quick. Next class is on credit cards and how to finesse the finesse. So next week I get into how to use credit cards as a source of passive income. So how to get the perks and the free rewards without paying any of the interest. Recording of today's class is going to be uploaded to YouTube by the end of the day. Weeks 1 and 2 have already been uploaded. Every Sunday class repeats Tuesday at 10 a.m. That's where you guys are now. Tuesday's my favorite. Reach out to me. This is my email, or message me on Insta right here.
Okay, bye.
Bye, guys. Have a great week. I'll be talking to you on the internet as you message, okay?
I would be just focusing on making income.
Wonderful. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
You're welcome.